and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I am DJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. It is the final week of our summer 2021 Backlog Attack, and we're playing Hollow Knight and Stardew Valley.
This is going to be a good one.
Based on what criteria?
I don't know. I feel like maybe I should forego my segment this week and just, you can talk about Stardew Valley the whole show. Because I know people have been waiting for that one for a long time.
Yes. Yeah, this has been Stardew Valley has been an oft requested game for me in the Discord. We have a few big champions of Stardew Valley in our little community, and a lot of utter disbelief that I've never played that game. So I'm pleased to have finally gotten around to it, and maybe those people will leave me alone now.
This is all just a method to get people to leave you alone.
Right, yeah. Just stop tweeting me or whatever. You don't tweet on Discord. What do you do?
Yeah, well, whatever
stop
you're doing.
Discording me.
Stop it, whatever that is.
Stop all the Discord. But no, you're going to talk about Hollow Knight. We'll find some time, I promise.
Okay, yeah. I feel like these are two, landmark games, though. I mean, we've talked about some weird stuff this summer. Yeah. But these are like, Stardew Valley, Hollow Knight, probably top 10 for some people. Probably top 1 for
tier,
people.
Yeah, video game experiences. Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly, again is a bit of a deep pull. It'll do too, a bit of a deep pull. Burly Men at Sea. Yeah. So yeah, I guess these are definitely headliners. So exciting that we saved them for the last week.
Yeah, that's what people have been waiting for.
They're also pretty big experiences, and certainly cannot be confined to the 7 days that we give ourselves to play these games.
True. Yeah.
So what else is going on, DJ? Anything exciting or interesting or horrible to report from your life?
Oh, just a lot of smoke outside, so I'm staying indoors and playing Hollow Knight. Working out.
Is it that time of year already?
It's that time of year. It's my least favorite time of the year, just like late summer. Normally, I'm not super into it just because it's like very warm and muggy, but now there's just smoke all the time. Real drag. Bummer.
People need to lay off the gender reveal parties.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on this year.
No, I don't either. It's probably not a nice thing to joke about. But
I mean, in general, people should lay off gender reveal parties because that is it's silly. Let's just all admit that.
We put that out here right now. Nobody cares but you.
Right.
I am not impressed that you're having a boy or a girl. Those are the only two options. That's all. Yeah.
Let me know when, you cut open the cake and it's like green inside. You're like, whoa, they got a new one.
Lizard baby. I'll come to that party.
What's this
Let's
one?
go. Yeah.
Reptile.
If it's like V. Yeah. If it's a little, creepy reptilian, I want to come to that party. But otherwise, stick your gender reveal party.
Anyway.
Hopefully not. This is not a controversial take. People, I don't want to get angry emails, but yeah.
Just angry people just having to forego their weekly gender reveal parties. I don't know. What else is going on?
Let's get to the backlog. Maybe we should talk about some of these games.
All right, before we get into the last couple of games we've been playing, maybe we should throw out the bonus challenge for this last week of people playing along with us in the contest, which is just to get people caught up. We are giving people the chance to attack their own backlogs up until midnight on September 5th, which is coming up very soon.
Very soon, yeah.
So
look out, it's September.
Get those games wrapped up. Basically, we want you to be playing through your old games, knocking stuff out of your backlog, and just sending us evidence of your backlog achievements by posting a game over screen or a end credits screen of whatever you're playing. You can send those to us on Discord. You can tweet at us at Video Game Hangover. Or sorry, that doesn't make sense. At VGHangover on Twitter. Or you can email us, contact@vghangover.com, with that screenshot, plus just 10 words about the game, because it's the 10th Backlog Attack.
Yeah.
But since this is the final week, you can get a little bonus credit if you just include #turnips with your post. #turnips, who comes up with this? What is that? I don't. That's just what it says here. So you'd better do it. But anyway, keep those screenshots coming in. You have until midnight on September 5th, after which we will tally all of the entrants and determine the who has achieved the greatest feat of backloggery, and that person will win a new game.
Awesome. Yeah. So hashtag turnips. That is from it's from a lot of things, but it's from Stardew Valley. That is the first crop you get to grow in Stardew Valley. I think that's the same experience everybody has. There's a lot of places in Stardew Valley where it seems like your experience can kind of diverge a little bit from other games, but other people playing that game. But I think kind of the one kind of unifying structural piece is that you get 500 gold and some turnip seeds to start. Yeah,
the great equalizer with turnips.
Yeah. So Stardew Valley is a game.
It's a game. Okay.
Yeah. So if you somehow are in the gaming community and are not aware of Stardew Valley, I will attempt to sort of give you a little bit of information on what this thing is. I feel like, and I believe I've read this somewhere, that it's this sort of indie take on a sort of a life sim, a farming sim kind of game. So take your Harvest Moons of the world, maybe a little bit of Animal Crossing, and definitely add kind of an indie game aesthetic and spin to it, and you would end up with kind of a Stardew Valley kind of experience. You start your game with the death of your grandfather, and on his deathbed, he leaves you the deed to his farm, and smash cut to you moving to the farm and you're realizing the house is small and the farm is in rough shape and overgrown, and there's a town nearby, Pelican Town, full of villagers sort of bustling about their day in life, and you have a variety of little sort of video game town institutions like a pub, and
like an item shop.
Yeah, there's a general store. There's there's the big corporate, grocery store that has moved into town.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have this big gleaming white grocery store. I forget what the name of the company is, but they also make a brand of cola that sort of pops up everywhere. That is a bit of an energy drink, or actually, I've caught cans of their cola that I've pulled out of the river. So perhaps they're responsible for some ecological terror in the neighborhood as well.
Are they your big rival in the game as you try and peddle your locally sourced produce?
I don't know if there's a rivalry that emerges. This is sort of a bit of a disadvantage of sort of talking about this game based on the limited experience that I've had with it so far, is it is meant to be this kind of sprawling, seemingly kind of endless experience. That the game happens in seasons. Each season is, I believe, 28 days kind of in-game. It's not real time like an Animal Crossing kind of experience, so it doesn't take you 28 days to play 28 days worth of the game. The timer moves fairly quickly, but I've got, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours with this thing thus far. I've been playing about an hour a day, and I think I'm maybe 12, 13 days into the game, so first couple of weeks.
Nice.
Halfway through the season. Does that make sense? Yeah, about halfway through a season. So yeah, there are presumably things that happen much later in the game in further seasons that I haven't seen yet. I'm not going to be able to speak to here, obviously, but at least in the early hours of this thing, you are encouraged by the mayor to come into town more often and talk to other people and get to know some of your new neighbors and stuff like that. And just south of you, there is another farm, a much bigger, much more successfully operated farm that has animals on it and rows and rows of crops and stuff like that in the fields. There's a farmer there that you can kind of talk to. I felt like maybe that would be a person who would give you some advice and stuff like that, but they're a little standoffish. They don't really have a lot to say to you. And that is a lot of my experience with the people in the villages so far. I know from what I've heard about this game that people really kind of speak highly of the relationships that you build, and there's a possibility for kind of romancing some of the people in the village over time and kind of going out on dates with them and stuff like that. And I think there are a number of things you could do to sort of, ingratiate yourself upon the people in the village. But a lot of them seem pretty standoffish so far. A lot of them are not really interested in kind of long-winded dialogue with me. They seem to have their one or two lines that they repeat over and over and over again. And then I don't get much more out of them. So again, playing the long game here, I imagine those things would open up and that they would have sort of new points of contact, and that there are things that will emerge throughout the course of the game that I can do to kind of curry favor with people. But that stuff is not really sort of present in the first couple of weeks.
You just gotta, they gotta warm up to you. This weird farm boy just moved in.
Yeah. Some people are very excited. Some people are like, hey, I heard. Everybody has heard that there's a new person in town. It's a small town. So when somebody new moves in, particularly to the sort of decrepit, falling apart farm in the corner of town, that's big news. So you do get people who are like, hey, we're excited that you moved here. People don't move here very often. And then they go about their day. They run away from you before you can ask any follow-up questions. Yeah. So it's been a little weird thus far. Like, I'm really trying to sort of like get a feel for the characters around me and learn some of these people's kind of names and stories and stuff like that, and maybe steer into some of those romance options a little bit, but the game's not giving me much. So I don't know if I'm on the right path with those things or not. I guess I continue to have to poke at it a little bit. One of the people in our Discord who is a big fan of this game, she recommended that I go to the pub on a Friday night and just buy everybody a round of drinks, which apparently is an option in the game. And I'm like, that seems so obvious.
Yeah,
who doesn't like people who buys them drinks? So yeah. I'm at it Tuesday right now, and Friday night's the best night because everybody goes to the pub on Friday night. So as Friday rolls up, I will have to go into town. Hopefully I have enough money saved up by then, because money is scarce. It is. I am running on a very lean budget in this game, and have enough money to buy the townsfolk a round of drinks on me.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. So that's cool. I love the idea of that. It's cool that that exists in the game, but there has been nothing with my experience thus far, actually just sort of playing through the routines of it, that has sort of presented itself to me that way. Everything else feels very sort of rote video game stuff. Like, it feels like, I found some seeds. You must get a pickaxe to sort of like, chop off the rocks on your property, and then you need a hoe to, drag little lines in the ground, and then you drop your seeds, and you need a watering can to water them, and then it takes, 5 in-game days or whatever for the seeds to grow into plants. That first batch is turnips. Those are worth money. You can sell them. There's a little drop box you put them in, and mysteriously overnight they turn into money. I think the mayor says he comes in the middle of the night and collects them from you, but that doesn't actually happen in game. Also, stay off my property at night, Mayor.
You're just staying up trying to catch the mayor.
Exactly. Easy, creeper. Get out of here. Yeah. So yeah, it feels very video gamey. It feels like, so this is what I expect to happen in kind of a farming sim. There's nothing that has kind of happened in these early hours thus far, that feel like a significant deviation from that. I think I'm getting little nuggets of things as I sort of wander around town and explore further. I found a bridge that goes to someplace that it says, if you only had 100 pieces of wood, you could fix this bridge. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go get 100 pieces of wood. So immediately just started clear-cutting the nearest forest I could find until I ran out of energy. And then I didn't know how to get more energy. I'm like, probably eat something. So I went to the pub, and they had spaghetti that I could buy, but it was like 300 gold.
Classic, working food. So
I'm like, I'm not spending 300 gold on spaghetti. You only start the game with 500 gold.
But yeah, that's an expensive spaghetti.
It's a lot of spaghetti. So it was like 4:00 in the afternoon. I was out of energy for the day. I'm like, I'm just going to go to bed, because that's the only way that I have found.
Maybe you just stop working for the day. That sounds fine.
Yeah. That's the only thing that I have found that sort of refills energy other than edibles is to, go to bed for the night. You wake up in the morning with a full stack of energy again. So
yeah,
I did. 4:30 in the afternoon. I was going to sleep already.
All right. I mean, okay. There's nothing else you can do around town without requiring energy.
Again, the fans in our backlog have encouraged me to do some foraging, which apparently is pretty low energy consumption.
Yeah.
And I asked for Claridan, which is foraging mean, and it basically just means wander around town and look for pickups. Apparently there are kind of seasonal
dumpster diving.
Exactly, yeah. Now I'm a freegan, and I'm just going through the dumpster behind the pub. No, there are seasonal pickups that you can get that are sort of wild-grown things. If you go down to the beach, you can pick up shells. If you putter around the village, I think you can pick strawberries or some kind of berry. And those have sort of a nutritional value. Obviously, you can eat them for energy, or you can put them in your little drop box overnight and make a few credits off of them. So trying to do a little bit of that stuff at the end of the day after I've exhausted all of my energy trying to sort of clear brush from my my farm. I don't know. It feels very aimless. And I know this is the criticism a lot of people have of kind of the Animal Crossing experience, where you're sort of, I don't know, you have choice paralysis a little bit, where you're like, okay, what do I do? I've done all the stuff. I've talked to everybody. I went to the shop. I went to the 2 shops if it's Animal Crossing. And I don't know what to do with my time anymore. And I have a lot of that brewing for me in Stardew Valley, where like I get out of bed in the morning with like just a short list in my brain of like objectives, like I can fish, or there's a note in your mailbox that says, hey, come talk to me at this store. If your backpack is getting cramped, we can upgrade your backpack to 24 items instead of 12. And I'm like, well, I would take that. The inventory is very cramped. So I go talk to that person, and they're like, sure, let me upgrade your backpack. It'll be 2,000 credits.
Oh.
I'm like, dude, it's day 3. Where are you hitting me up for 2,000 credits? Who has that much money on the 3rd day? So
I want to say that, like, so you're playing it for a week. I feel like at this point, it sounds like maybe you should just concentrate on the, getting the farm up and running, and then more opportunities will avail themselves to you as, you build up your supply of cash and whatever other crops you got.
Probably. I've done quite a bit of that. I've planted every seed I've found. I've clear cut a ton of space. You get to, in the start of the game, you get to pick for, I think, 5 or 6 different types of farms. I picked the beach farm because it felt like it would have kind of an Animal Crossing kind of like
beach farm.
Yeah. The beach farm. I don't know if that's a thing in real life, but in the game, it's a real thing. You can't have sprinklers on the beach farm. For some
interesting.
Reason, because they don't work on sand.
Because the waves just come in and that takes care of that.
I don't know. You're surrounded by water, obviously, and there's lots of little bridges everywhere that go off to different islands and stuff like that. So I kind of like the layout of it. It feels kind of cool and creative. It's
like the farm itself has islands?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just sort of like a straightforward like plot of land. It's definitely a little more kind of geographically interesting.
And does that decision affect sort of the surrounding area? Like, is the town different depending on what kind of farm you pick, or you just?
I don't know the answer to that, actually. I think. I guess feel like sense. Probably it just changes the geography of your corner of the map.
Yeah.
You're sort of like the northwest corner of the map. The rest of it is your neighbors and is the village of Pelican Town.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, I feel like it just changes that sort of quadrant that you're in. I don't know if the rest of it remixes itself at all.
Mm. So what were the other farms that you passed up on for this beach farm?
There's a mountaintop farm. And it tells you in the little description that there's a give and take for all of these. That there's a lot of rocks on a mountaintop farm, but I forget what the give is in that situation. There's a bonus. There's the wilderness farm, which sort of appealed to me, which is sort of like a deep wood situation. But you have to be very mindful of the clock, it says, because at night monsters come out.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like I'm for a game with monsters, but I don't know if I want to sort of deal with the extra angst of that, apparently.
Not even like forest life, like bears or anything, but monsters.
It says, I think the word the game uses, if I remember correctly, is monsters. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There's a quadrant farm. There's like a 4 corners farm, they call it, and it has 4 big plots of land. And they said this is an ideal game plot if you're gaming with somebody else, if you have a co-op partner.
Oh, interesting.
And you can sort of like, I'll take these 2, you take these 2, and we can kind of farm them together. And I think there's 3 more on top of that. One is just your standard, probably the one that was in the game from the beginning, just your standard farmy type farm. And I forget what the other ones are, but I like that. That was kind of neat. There's a lot of sort of stress in the beginning of an Animal Crossing game when you are playing the lottery a little bit to sort of see what island you get, see what town layout you get. And I kind of dig that Stardew Valley was very upfront with it at the beginning, saying, pick the one you think you'd want to live on.
Yeah, that's nice.
And that changes the game for you. Yeah. So it does sort of address that always sort of weird thing at the beginning of an Animal Crossing experience. Yeah, I'm doing farming, but that's not a whole day. Like, you know what I mean? And there are a lot of resources necessary. At some point, you just need to start kind of like upgrading your tools so it doesn't take 15 whacks to knock down a tree with your axe, et cetera, et cetera. And all of those things take resources. All of those things take money. And the only way that I have found thus far to get money is to grow more shit to sell to the mayor in the box overnight. I have Googled and I have asked for help on Discord saying, how do I get more money? And that seems to be the pathway.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Strawberries apparently very, very lucrative. If you can grow strawberries, those have the best sort of return on investment. But I can't thus far find strawberry seeds anywhere. So I assume that's coming.
Oh, it's going to be so exciting when you do, though. You'll be like, this is what I've been looking for the last 60 hours.
The cash crop.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're just getting established, I'm sure. And 60 hours later, you'll just be rolling in it. You'll be like, oh, man, remember those difficult times when all I had was a handful of turnip seeds and couldn't even afford spaghetti.
Yeah.
Now everything's great.
All the spaghetti in the world. Yeah, and I think that's sort of the disadvantage of trying to sort of review this based on the limited experience that I've had with it thus far, is that I'm not seeing what everybody who loves this game sees. Like, the early hours are not great. The game is not good at explaining itself at all. It doesn't tell you you have a backpack. You're just left to sort of like poke at buttons and figure out how you're navigating them. It doesn't sort of explain to you like how to get people to go on dates and stuff like that. The only reason I know that is from being explained to me in our Discord by, these super fans that are in our community. I think there is a lot of sort of vague shit happening in Stardew Valley. And I'm feeling some stress from it because I want to win Stardew Valley, I think. And the message I'm getting from our community more than anything is just calm down, just sort of consume it at your own pace. There's no fail states. You can't break the game. Just kind of putter around, just explore, just, consume it at your own pace. And I'm struggling a little bit with that.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is just you need to figure out what the pace is supposed to be like, because I don't know how many of other farming sims you've played, but
not a lot.
I have a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I adore Animal Crossing. That's not a surprise to anybody who's heard more than one episode of this show. But I've never played a Harvest Moon game, so I have no experience with that type of game.
Yeah.
In those Farming Simulator 2020 or whatever, I've never played any of that stuff either. So, I've played a little. What was the game where you had a little island and Cozy Grove? I played that. That has some farming and growing stuff kind of happening in it. Mm-hmm. That's about the extent of it. Not too much more than that. So, not an expert at farming sims by any stretch.
Well, I mean, at least this one has the advantage of you finish up, or maybe you're not finished, but you used up all your energy doing your tasks for the day. You can just immediately go to sleep and start up the next day. Whereas in Animal Crossing, you would actually have to wait for the next day in real time, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, or time travel.
Yeah. But in this one, I don't know. I mean, it just sounds like you got to keep the loop rolling. I don't know what you're doing on a daily basis, but, go out and tend to your turnips and then just come back and go to bed until you, build up everything a little bit.
Yeah. That's kind of how I've been approaching it, I think. I just... I don't know. Like I said, the game does not do a lot to tell you any of this stuff. You are left to sort of explore and intuit, which is fine. That's cool. I can be that person. But I think maybe from the Animal Crossing type experience, I'm afraid I'm going to miss something or have not done something correctly. Because there's definitely sort of missable things in an Animal Crossing experience that if you screw it up, if you miss a thing, if you don't show up for a day, it's going to be a year before that comes around again. And I don't know that kind of discipline is necessary to appreciate Stardew Valley, but I'm trying to sort of create it for myself, and it's causing a little bit of stress for me.
I never played this, so I can't speak to how well it works or how exactly it works, but I feel like that seems like they would not design a whole lot of those into this type of game. I mean, I like the fact that you can't really get a game over. I get the impression that it just loops around. I mean, because it's just seasons, right? Like, eventually the year rolls over.
Right.
So if you, missed out on crops this one season, or if you miss out on a holiday, it just comes around again.
Yeah. And maybe you don't need the mega farm after 5 days, that maybe you're just, you need your humble little garden, and then you sort of save resources and seeds and stuff. And then next spring, you go to town after you've sort of built up. I want to be good at Stardew Valley from day one. And it's maybe the game is just not built to be consumed that way.
No, you just have to accept that you're going to be the noob farm owner for a while. And then you get to look back at yourself and be like, oh man, can you believe this guy?
Right.
Did I ever tell you about the one time I attempted to play Harvest Moon?
No. I was going to say, this is probably definitely an experience sort of best sort of appreciated when you kind of play the long game with it.
Yeah.
So I understand perhaps the error in me trying to sort of crunch this during a backlog attack.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least you're getting an intro to it, I imagine. I mean, hopefully you stick with it and get a little more into it.
Yeah, certainly my Animal Crossing experience has kind of wound down. There's a lot less for me to do in the game every day now, until, Nintendo gets their shit together and puts more stuff in the game. But, I in the last 2 weeks, I've completely filled my museum, which has been this long-standing, if I had any objective left after everything I wanted to accomplish in Animal Crossing, it was collect all of the now art pieces was the last gallery I had to sort of fill, and did that a week and a half ago.
That's intense.
It's pretty intense, yeah, and it took a lot. And now I'm sort of like, I don't know, what do I do? Do I just bulldoze everything and start from scratch? Do I maybe start futzing with my villagers a little bit and try to chain them out and get some new personalities in there? I don't know where to go with my island next, so I'm in a weird place with Animal Crossing. So it's exciting and maybe a little intimidating to have a Stardew Valley to kind of pivot to.
Yeah.
To sort of replace that, that spot in my life.
I mean, who knows? This could be your new thing. Maybe you won't need Animal Crossing anymore.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like it yet. It doesn't. I don't have that itch to play it. I don't have that that hook that Animal Crossing gets me from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sort of feel like the first couple of days with an Animal Crossing game, it just feels like this world of potential. And I don't feel like that with Stardew Valley. I don't feel like, oh, someday I'm going to have the coolest farm in the universe. I just sort of feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Why won't these people talk to me? How come I can't grow anything? Et cetera, et cetera. It just, it's a lot of sort of mechanics I'm trying to suss out, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I'm still trying to video game it, I think.
Yeah. It seems like a very robust game, so imagine there's going to spend a lot of time just trying to figure out how everything works, dealing with the learning curve a little bit.
So I cut you off. I'm sorry. You were talking about Harvest Moon.
Oh, right. I was just thinking when you're talking about missable stuff. I'd always heard the good things about Harvest Moon, so I decided to give it a shot. This is a long time ago. But the game starts up and you're on a farm, as you would expect. And they do try and they kind of explain to you what to do. They're like, oh, you should plant some crops because it's going to rain soon, and they'll water the crops and then they'll grow and you can harvest them. And that's the entire game. So I thought, well, I know I should harvest, or I should plant these crops. But I'll do that tomorrow. There's going to be, I'll go see what's going on in the town. Who knows what I'm missing out on here. So I don't plant any crops the first day. It rains the next day, I can't plant crops in the rain for whatever reason. I'm like, oh man, missed it. So then I plant crops on the third day, and it just never rains again. I'm just like, when's it going to rain? When's it going to rain? So I just felt like, oh man, that was the window. You really got to plant the crops on the first day in this game. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for a disaster.
You didn't have a watering can?
I don't know. I don't remember. But it really felt like, oh yes, it's designed for you to plant everything on the first day because there's this huge rainstorm and then nothing for a while. So,
okay.
I don't know if that's how it works in every Harvest Moon playthrough, but kind of turned me off that game.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably did not go back to it much after that point.
Yeah, but no, Stardew Valley intrigues me, though, just because it sounds very, player-friendly. I mean, that was the very first Harvest Moon game, so I imagine they've come a long way since then. But yeah, I like the idea of just having projects in a game, whether that's planting crops or, building out a farm, like building out new sections of the farm. That's exciting to me. I like doing that in whether it's like Minecraft or like Valheim. It's very sort of therapeutic.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that sort of going to bed at night in a video game and like making plans for tomorrow. Like, tomorrow I'll work on, this little island off to the side that has a lot of rocks and trees on it or whatever
exactly.
your objective is. Yeah. Just don't have enough energy today, but tomorrow I'm going to tackle this project. Yeah. I think that's fun. And that's obviously, I think that's sly video game design. That is definitely a way to kind of keep you coming back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the idea that you can just go to bed in this. Because, I would do those projects. Like when I was landscaping my entire island in Animal Crossing, I would be like, oh, I have such a great idea for this area, except they will only... What was the deal? They could only build one bridge per day, or it was basically a 24-hour thing. You would get locked out.
Yep, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Well, I got to move this building. That was it. That was the thing that takes forever. But, no, if you could just push a button and be like, well... just skip ahead to the next day, and then I can continue with my public works. It's kind of nice.
It's a fast forward button, essentially. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if I would even miss the fact that it's in real time, just because that seems like such a thing that works specifically for Animal Crossing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are not a lot of other gaming experiences where I wish it was a real-time thing. I like sort of consuming Animal Crossing that way. I would much rather spend a half an hour, 45 minutes a day playing that game than playing it in a sitting for 8 hours in one shot or whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that game Animal Crossing specifically, is best kind of consumed in microdoses. Whereas the structure of timing in Stardew Valley, I think, makes it feel like, well, I could play this for 3 hours at a shot and do a bunch of stuff. It feels super productive.
You go hard on this one if you wanted. I'm sure eventually you'll get to that point.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah, but it's fine. This is not a glowing review for me thus far, but certainly knowing that I'm not reviewing the full product here. I think it's weird and aimless and vague in the early hours, and that is definitely a bit of a turnoff. I don't need everything sort of spelled out for me, but at the very least, tell me to, even just once, push X to open your backpack. You know what I mean? I don't.
I'm surprised you don't just load up a new game and hit every button on the controller and be like, what does this do? What does this do? Where's my map? Where's my backpack?
I did. Well, that's how I've discovered these things, but what was the first thing? Oh, day 2 or 3, you get a letter in your mailbox. And I'm hopefully not ruining the experience for anybody. If you're sensitive to these kinds of things, maybe skip ahead, 45 seconds. Somebody in the game sends you a letter and says, hey, come see me on the fishing pier. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn how to fish.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I run down to the fishing pier on day 2, and they give me a long-winded speech about who they are and where they came from. And, oh, by the way, here's your first fishing pole. I bought a new one. You can have my old one. And I put it in my inventory. And then he was trying to teach me how to fish. So I tried to pull it out of my inventory, opened up my backpack, hit a couple of buttons, and it didn't actually move it into my hand so that I could use it. It put it in a trash can, and I threw it away. Yep. Okay. Huh. And he continues with the lesson. I still have a fishing pole in my hand.
You haven't just thrown your fishing rod out right in front of him.
Yeah, and I'm like, surely there's got to be a way to ungarbage it or something, but there was not that I could find anyways. So I had to play that day over again. I'm happy it didn't save, because if it auto-saved, I'd be fucking livid. But I had to start the game over, go back to the start screen, reboot into that morning, wake up out of bed, and then very carefully accept the fishing pole from him. Yeah. So again, one of those things where it's sort of this could have been solved by putting a little icon that says push X to throw this away or something like that. I'm, I don't know, old and dumb. Assume I'm old and dumb, and maybe just need these things kind of spelled out for me.
It's not one of those games where it just puts every button prompt up on the screen at all times.
No. I think that's bad game design too. But these things should be contextual. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Spell it out for me a little bit, please.
Yeah. No, it's true. I like what I expect from the big AAA games at this point. Thinking of Monster Hunter or like Assassin's Creed especially, but they're just like, you basically just have the entire controller mapping up in the corner, so at any time it just tells you what each button does. But this is not a huge AAA game. This is just one guy, I believe. Or it was
right, yeah. Point. But there was another thing too. The top right hand corner of the screen has a little a sun and a moon thing that sort of shows your time of day, and it has a little meter below it that tells you how many pieces of gold you have thus far. And below that, at some point there was a little exclamation point that popped up, and I'm like, what is the exclamation point? And I couldn't click on it. I couldn't tap on it. Like, what is the game trying to tell me with this exclamation point? So I Googled, what the hell is the exclamation point? And apparently if you use the right stick in this game, it puts a little on-screen pointer, like a cursor. Yeah. And you move it up to the little exclamation point and click on it. And I'm playing on the Switch, mind you, which has a touchscreen.
Yeah.
Move the little cursor to the exclamation point, and it opens up a journal that tells you, welcome to town. You've been given some turnips. Plant them in the ground, clear a path with your hoe, add water. And I'm like, there it is. There's the stuff. But like no explanation as to what the exclamation point was, how to get to the exclamation point, that there was an in-game pointer for some reason. Like, just tell me these things once, just briefly, and get out of my way. But like the game gave me none of it. And I don't know, I'm angry about that a little bit.
But now that you know that, everything's great. Yeah. You just go to the exclamation point.
Much better, yeah.
Okay.
I fumbled around in the dark for 3.5 days in game. Yeah.
I imagine like this was originally a PC game, right? So I think it would have been natural for people to just click on the exclamation point. But yeah, they should have explained the virtual stick thing. That's weird. Yeah.
Instead of me having to go to some forum, GameFAQs or something, to figure out what it was.
Well, I mean, good old GameFAQs always has your back.
So I'm intrigued by Stardew Valley. I have been intrigued. It's sat on my Switch for many, many, many moons at this point, and it has fortunately been updated a number of times while it's been waiting for me to play it. So I am, consuming Stardew Valley at its kind of ultimate form. Mm-hmm. So that's fun. I don't have a co-op partner, unfortunately. That's a bummer. But as a solitary farmer here, it's kind of cool to be able to play kind of the ideal version of this, but it does still feel a little rough in those early hours.
Okay, well, we're going to throw this one in the vault. We're going to come back to it in like 3 months when you are a turnip tycoon and just, you've got your money bin full of gold and spaghetti that you're rolling around in.
Sure.
Just to, so we can look back and go, oh, remember this? Remember when you were just starting out your fledgling farm?
How silly and naive I was.
Yeah. Well, cool. I mean, I don't know if I was expecting just a glowing review, because this does feel like more of a slow burn to me. But I like that you started playing it. I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I make myself stick with it.
Yeah. I played The Hollow Knight.
Nice.
Or just Hollow Knight. For some reason, I've just been being like, I'm going to play The Hollow Knight. But no, that's not the name of the game.
It's just Hollow Knight, yeah.
Yeah. You played a little bit of this, I believe.
I did, yeah. I think I not long. I'm, maybe 45 minutes, an hour or something. Right. I don't remember spending a ton of time with it. And then I got to some big battle where I just wiped out. And it, brought me all the way back to the very beginning of the game. And I was like, nope, not for me.
Well, we'll get to that. But, so, just in case nobody knows what this is, I feel like this is fairly well known. But anyway, this game has been sort of pitched to me as just like a good Metroidvania game that I would enjoy. Which is like, oh, that sounds good. Yeah. I've also heard people say it is like the greatest Metroidvania game of all time, which is like, whoa, that's high praise. Maybe I should check that out. And so I decided I'd just throw it into the backlog this year. And I've got to say, so just like, I've played it for maybe 6 or 7 hours, and they're right, it's pretty good. I don't know if I'm ready to say it's the best Metroidvania ever, but I'm having a good time with it.
I don't know what the best Metroidvania. I mean, it should be Metroid or Castlevania, I guess. If
I don't know what that would be either. Yeah, I mean, I haven't just to put it out there. I haven't played a lot of like Metroidvania style games that are not Metroid or Castlevania, which I feel is kind of like a blind spot in my sort of gaming history. So, maybe I don't have all the best references or basis for comparison for this. But I'm having a good time with it so far.
Cool.
It is, I don't know, the premise is very vague. It feels very or this is just one of the ways in which it feels very like Dark Souls to me, is that you are just like some guy. You're like a little bug-looking guy, and you are dropped into a mysterious world that seems like a lot of Dark Souls worlds is just kind of on the brink of ruin, or is ruined already. It's kind of moved on. And you're just left to your own devices to go explore, and you're given sort of cryptic clues along the way, hinting at may have happened to this world or what could be happening. It's very mysterious. But at that point, you're just, you're left to explore this big map, fight enemies, unlock power-ups and equipment and various things so you can explore further. And at that point, it feels very familiar. It feels like just typical Metroidvania exploration.
It feels very, if I remember sort of my experience with it correctly, very open immediately. The early hours of, I feel like of Metroid games, of Castlevania games, are fairly channeled. They before the kind of opening you up to the entire castle, they keep you on a pretty narrow path to kind of teach you stuff, introduce you to the game. I don't feel like Hollow Knight sort of approached it that way. I feel like Hollow Knight kind of just gives you everything, or at least gives you a lot immediately. And that was a little bit of my frustration with it earlier, was sort of like, I have 3 doors I can go through, and it's not sort of channeling me in the direction of one over the other, which is the right door. And maybe there is no right door. Maybe it's just how you decide to sort of approach the game.
Yeah, I don't think there is. I mean, ultimately there is. Right, because I don't know how nonlinear you can get with a progression, but I feel like you're expected to go fight this boss first and get this power up, at least in the same general order. So there is sort of a correct path through it, but it's not really structured where it's like, oh, you have to go this way. I think that it does encourage you to just explore the different routes a lot, because I think that's sort of what people want, and I think it's been entertaining, or it's been enjoyable not really having the marker on your map that's like, oh, go here, and then go here after you do that, because right. No, I think a lot of the appeal of those early Metroid games especially is just, exploring and getting your bearings and sort of learning where everything is. And that's been an exciting aspect of Hollow Knight so far. In fact, I like the fact that when you first get to an area in this game, you don't even have a map for it, which I thought was going to freak me out at first, because, when you get farther into a Metroid or Castlevania game, the map is just immense. So you really need something to just show you where you are until you're really familiar with everything, with the castle layout or whatever. And you do eventually get a map in this, but like I said, when you first enter an area, you don't have one, and it feels like you're just always on the brink of just being completely lost and just not being able to even figure out how to get back to the starting area. Which is, I don't know, when this happens in other games, it makes me a little anxious. But in this one, it feels like, eventually I will find the map. Eventually I will be guided back to sort of the critical path. So I'm just kind of going with it this time around. Like, oh yeah, every new area is a little bit, it feels a little dangerous just getting in there, because you're like, oh, I haven't been here before. What sort of threats are going to jump out at me? And I hope I can survive until I find the cartographer and buy the map and be able to make my way back out to more familiar territories. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an interesting way this differentiates itself from a Metroid game.
Right.
That's another way it feels very like Dark Souls, is that you always run into these NPCs. And some of them will be the cartographer, or they'll be shopkeepers who have some function. But there are also a lot of NPCs that are just hanging out in an area, and you can talk to them and they will drop some lines about their backstory or what's going on in the world. And they're just kind of there for flavor, which I think is interesting. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that...
Oh, then not everything is relevant. Some things are just color, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if that will... I mean, how much they'll sort of develop that as the game goes on, but feels very... I thought it was an interesting... It feels very directly inspired from Dark Souls.
Yeah. I mean, you compare that to sort of like a Dragon Quest kind of experience where everybody you talk to in a town in Dragon Quest gives you just a little nugget of information on something that is actionable or something you should be looking for. I don't feel like there's a lot, and you play more Dragon Quest games than I have, so correct me if I'm off base on this, but, everything is a hint in some way in Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
And it feels like maybe some of these things in Hollow Knight are not meant to be like directions or motivating in some way. They're just meant to be, flavor.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell. Some of them may be, it may become clear what they were talking about later on. But some of them I just feel like they're just to give some sense of like the history of what happened in this world.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, so I'm enjoying the exploration. It's super exciting whenever I unlock some new sort of like traversal tool. Especially because it's not... Like I was saying, it's not Metroid or Castlevania because I don't really know what to expect in terms of sort of the upgrades that I'm going to encounter. In fact, that's something that kind of bums me out about playing a new Metroid style game or even like a new Zelda is that you kind of know what to expect, which is like, oh, when am I going to get like the space jump or the ice beam or the hook shot? Like when is that like thing going to just be in my inventory again?
Right.
That's like, I never played Hollow Knight before. I don't know what he's got up his sleeve. Who knows what's going to happen? So that's very exciting.
Cool. I get you.
So enjoying that. The combat also feels a bit Dark Souls. I mean, it sounds ridiculous just comparing everything to Dark Souls, but it feels like it has kind of the same philosophy where that you can't really just power through everything. You really have to be sort of dialed in, even against just common enemies who are walking around, who don't seem like they should pose much of a threat. Because you don't have a lot of health. You have like 5 hit points starting out, I believe. So you can imagine if you're just playing very sloppily and bumping into things, you'd be dead very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to just like... What I found, especially in the early hours... is, you smack an enemy once and kind of back off for a split second and then
get
wait
the hell
to
out
see
of there.
Wait to see what happens, because some of them will like charge you right away or some of them will jump at you. And there are a lot of weird sort of decisions I think went into the battle system in this, and the one that confuses me the most is like when you hit somebody, the like the hit flash animation or effect just from hitting them is so huge. It like covers up the enemy basically. So you like hit them and there's this big bright flash and you can't even see them anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Because like my sort of inclination would just be like, oh yeah, just go in and hit them as many times as possible, as quickly as you can, and like finish them off, right? But because of this big animation, you hit them and you can't even tell really what is happening in those critical like split seconds after your first attack. And that's gotten me into a lot of trouble a lot of the time. I just think it's such a weird decision. It feels like, I mean, it must have been intentional, right? So I can only conclude that they must be trying to get people to back away from that first hit until they just really know what's going on with every enemy, whether they know it's safe to go back in and try and follow up.
Sure, that makes sense.
Oh, but it's so strange. And then the other thing is that in the early hours of the game, you'll hit somebody and then there'll be this recoil where you'll get knocked back, which it's kind of like achieving the same thing where it like pushes you back for the enemy. So it makes it harder to do that kind of thoughtless follow-up move. But it also just makes you feel much more vulnerable, because there's like, you don't have great control over your positioning. And also there are a lot of times when you're like attacking something that's in the air or something like you can be fighting something in the environment. It's just little tiny platforms that you're jumping between. So you really have to be conscious of like, okay, if I hit this guy, am I going to be able to land back on safe ground, or am I going to fall into those spikes down there? It's very, very weird.
I remember that. I remember it being much more of a platformer than I think I was sort of expecting it to be.
Yeah.
And that there are a lot of, early on even, a lot of segments that require sort of very precise platforming. And I do remember like hitting another little beetle type thing and getting pushed back and off the edge of something going, oh, that was a mistake. Let's try that again.
Yep.
And yeah.
So it's very interesting. I was not expecting it to be, I was not expecting just like what feels like it should be the most basic combat encounters to be to require so much sort of attention, which I guess is good because, I don't know if I want to play a game where I'm just mashing the attack button and rolling through areas. It does make it so I'm paying much closer attention to everything that's going on. And then there's the boss fights, which, again, not to just keep saying this, but it feels very much like sort of a Dark Souls pattern boss where, like, first of all, you'll just have a huge boss enemy, and they will do these enormous attacks where, like, you don't have a block or anything. All you can really do is, like, dodge out of the way. And the rhythm is very familiar in that you, like, rush in, you can hit them, like, one time. Like, don't even think about doing a follow-up attack, because then you have to dodge their attack immediately.
Don't get greedy.
Yeah. No, you can't. And I was like, even in cases where there's been a boss, I think, oh, maybe I could get a second hit in. It's like, it's not a good idea, generally. At least not where I am in terms of, like, my character ability or me just being able to play the game. But I'm kind of into the bosses. I think they're really well done. It's typically they'll have, like, one or two attacks. And to me, that just feels like a Mega Man game where it's like, oh, which one is he going to do? How do I have to dodge this one? Right. And it's a little bit about just like figuring out the puzzle aspect of that, of just like knowing how to read the boss's attacks, that sort of thing. Still pretty difficult because, like I said, you only have a few hit points. But I've been having a good time with it. Like I haven't had too much difficulty getting through at least the early bosses. Cool.
It sounds like you really sort of admire it. Like you definitely have a lot of sort of appreciation for it.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a very, I don't want to say old school, but the attacks all the bosses use are very fair. They have very clear ways to avoid them. It's not, like I play games that have very demanding bosses, but like maybe they're dialed a little too much. Like, oh, you have to do a really precision jump over this boss or this attack at this point, otherwise you're going to take damage. That I'm not a huge fan of. Like that Odalis game that I played a few months ago. Yeah. I felt could be a little too, like, technically demanding during some of the boss fights. I mean, I enjoyed those boss fights for the most part. But this one, it just feels like, okay, is he going to do attack 1 or attack 2? And how do I deal with both of those? So, I mean, it's still pretty demanding, but it feels very fair. So that's something I like about it.
Cool. Man, what you're describing reminds me a lot of Death's Door, the game I played that.
Oh, sure.
Just a couple weeks ago. You're a little crow and you're basically a Grim Reaper. And same thing, like it has even the most kind of mundane encounters with other kind of like, little scrubs, basically the Koopas and the Goombas of the world are pretty intense. And if you let you don't have a lot of health, you let your guard down too early, or you don't, roll when you should have struck or whatever, you're going to get hit, and you can only take one or two of those before you're back to the beginning.
Right.
Death's Door is not a roguelike, so it is pretty generous, thank God, with save points. But likewise with the boss battles, it has these pretty, pretty demanding. I feel like they feel like kind of on the scale with like a Zelda boss, where there's a pattern of 3 that you're kind of looking for, and you have sort of timed responses to sort of survive that wave, and then you get your shot to take a hit or two. But again, don't be greedy. You're going to have to make sure that you're sort of measuring those things out. You're not going to roll your way through this pretty quickly. I like that in Death's Door. I was quite obsessed with that game when I was playing it and had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
I think it's just not structuring it like a roguelike got me there. I think my experience with Hollow Knight, just sort of getting wiped out and losing that whole hour of gameplay. I'm not that gamer. I don't have time for that.
Well, Hollow Knight is not a roguelike. I wonder, did you just not sit on any benches on your way to the boss fight? Because like benches are sort of the checkpoints that you use.
I think I did. I mean, I still have it. It's still sitting on my PS4. It would not kill me to go back to it again, obviously.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm a better gamer than I was 2 years ago when I tried playing. But I remember feeling very sort of turned off by losing progress in that game.
Interesting. So I don't know if you really, like, when you die, you lose whatever, like, money you were carrying. Your souls, essentially. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's the same system where, you drop all your souls in one place where you died, or at least they reappear sort of near there. And then when you go back there, you can pick them up again. There's like a little like shade version of yourself that you have to smack a couple times to get them back.
Oh.
And I assume, if you die on the way back before you recover them, you would just lose them. But that hasn't happened to me yet. But yeah, it does make you sort of just plan ahead, or at least be conscious of you're like, oh, I'm carrying a lot of money right now and don't know what's ahead. So there's always that danger of like running into a boss. So I've been just very, very diligent about going back up to the town and spending stuff as I'm exploring. Because that's another thing that's kind of interesting is that at the beginning of the game, it feels like you have to buy a lot of upgrades just to sort of like establish your footing. And a lot of it has been related to the map. There are like a lot of map upgrades you can buy. Just a lot of stuff to spend money on in the early hours. And then after that, I think it just turns into buying more expensive sort of these charm upgrades, which I think is interesting. Just to briefly get into it, there are like little perks you can equip. And you can only have a few equipped at a time. So it turns into sort of a balancing act of, do I want the one that gives me a little more health? Do I want the one that gives me like increased money pickup? Or my favorite is the one that eliminates the knockback on your attacks. So I'm like, oh yeah, now I can just go for it.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. It seems like there are a ton of different charms to unlock. So I imagine that'll be a bulk of the rest of the game.
Cool. I like when games have those little, little equipables, little modifiers, but you can only put 3 of them in at a time. And so you have to make sort of the difficult choice of like, do I let go of this one that I really like to get this other one that maybe I'll like more? And, I think the new God of War did that really well. You could put runes on your weapons. It completely changed a lot of the ways that I sort of approached that game in God of War. And whenever you get a cool new one, it's just, oh God, do I really want to give that other one up? Any game that sort of, is designed to sort of create that much pressure around which 3 do I have to live, I think is pretty well designed.
The ones that I'm using starting out just feel like the most basic sort of like quality of life stuff. Because there's one that like actually shows a little icon of where you're on the map, because otherwise you just have a blank map that you're staring at. Oh. Which I imagine like eventually maybe I won't need that one. Like I'll just know where things are. But for now, I think that's good. And the second is it just like pulls in whenever enemies drop money. It just like automatically collects it for you rather than you having to like go drop down to wherever the enemy died and go pick it up. So that's also very useful. And then there's the knockback thing, which I think like I can never unequip this because I'm just like, this feels too good. But also I'm just like, it's kind of in a Monster Hunter way. There are a lot of like little charms you can equip in that game that are just kind of smooth out little aspects of it. Like this one like increases or decreases the amount of time it takes to sharpen your sword, or like this one prevents you from getting staggered whenever a monster roars at you, which are very like nice and convenient things to have. But the more whenever like I get really into those games, I just start thinking like, well, how important really is sharpening my sword in the middle of a fight? Like I could probably be equipping a better, more effective charm. Like where's the one that does like extra critical damage or whatever? Right. So I'm very curious to see like what the more advanced charms I run into are. And I'm like, oh, this one's way better than, seeing where I am on the map at all times. So I should take this one instead.
Oh, Dishonored did that really well. Remember there were the little, I think there were runes in that game too that you could kind of equip that were pretty significant modifiers to the game.
Yeah, I like that as well. Yeah. But anyway, so cool. About, like I said, 5 or 6 hours into this, having a good time. It's a lot of fun. It's been a long time since I played a Metroidvania kind of thing. Especially
it's beautiful too. I mean, love the look of this game. The aesthetic,
it looks
really
amazing.
sort of owns darkness really well. I think does that in a very creative way, and just the character design is just very vivid. I love it.
Yeah, everything, I believe it's like hand animated. It's all 2D. Environments are very lush and mysterious. It's very kind of a weird, but very interesting aesthetic, considering that like the first area you go to is basically like a big like kind of bug's nest. So there are a bunch of just like bug carapaces or whatever scattered around. But it somehow just makes it all gorgeous. And then there are other environments you go to, like there's a very like forested or like moss covered area, very dreamlike. And the soundtrack's also very nice as well. It's very, kind of understated. Feels like a string quartet or something.
Nice,
but very good. Like as intense as some of the fights get, it's very interesting to have this balance where you have just very kind of soothing visuals and pretty relaxing soundtrack. It doesn't really get super intense even in like during the boss fights. They'll like punch up the percussion a little bit. But yeah, just a very pleasant experience. Looking forward to getting back into it.
Cool. That's great.
I want that double jump. I don't know if there's a double jump in this one. It just feels like there must be at some point. But who knows? Maybe there will be like the Hollow Knight version of a double jump.
You could do a double jump, but it takes 3 of your 5 hit points.
See, I have to think about that.
I don't know. I'm totally making that up. I don't want to get anybody angry or concerned, but that's the thing that I pulled out of my brain.
Yeah.
I didn't play this game long enough to get a map, let alone learn how to do a double jump.
Oh, you didn't get the map? Okay.
No. I remember talking to the cartographer, but I don't know. I don't remember seeing a map ever, so.
Oh, well, you got to talk to him, then you got to go back to the town and then buy it from him, I think.
Gotcha.
In fact, that's maybe the only sort of complaint I have about this game so far is that, I mean, as much as I like sort of the mystery of how it like doesn't give you the map immediately, it seems very inconsistent about how it, like once you do have the map, how it reveals the map to you. There have been a lot of moments. I've been doing a lot of backtracking in this game, just trying to figure out where to go next. And you know how it is. You look at your map and you go, oh, this room doesn't have an end on it or whatever. Like clearly I didn't explore the end of this tunnel on the map, so I'm gonna go do that. And I go there and I actually have explored it. It's just not marked on the map for some reason, so I don't really know why that's happening. But it has led to a lot of cases where I'm just like traversing across the entire map because I think I've got a lead on where to go next, and I'm just like, oh, this is a dead end from half an hour ago that I already knew about.
No, that's weak. But
yeah, it's fine. Hopefully it kind of sorts itself out. Overall, having a good time with it.
Awesome. Well, good. I think we should wrap this up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We are, this is the final week of our summer backlog attack. If you are interested in a last-ditch attempt to play along with us, definitely hop on Discord or tweet us. Go to VGHangover.com. There's a post there with a bunch of information. And don't forget the extra credit hashtag this week is #turnips. However you post about your games, include that for a little extra credit.
Yeah, don't forget.
Yeah.
September 5th coming up soon.
Yeah. If you want to figure out how to get into our Discord, there is a link to that at VGHangover.com as well. We would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcast app of choice. It says here that Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you can get a podcast is a viable option. And perhaps the most important and most useful to us is please make sure you tell your friends about the show.
Yeah, it really helps us get the word out. I was trying to, speaking of Spotify, I was trying to figure out if the Dragon Quest Swords soundtrack was on Spotify. I talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I searched for it, and all that came up was our show where we talked about it for that episode. So I was like, well, not what I was looking for, but that's nice to see.
Yeah, that works. I think that's I'll take that. That's all right.
Anyway, speaking of good soundtracks, special thanks again to Hal Binderman for our intro and outro music this week. Please head on over to heavyviper.bandcamp.com. Listen to some more of his stuff. Maybe buy an album or two.
Yeah. just flashing back to a previous artist that we featured on the show, Lemonetric, have their new album out, right?
Oh yeah, new album just came out. The latest installment in the I'm gonna mess it up, but the citrus themed series of albums he's been putting out.
Something fruit related, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right, we'll be back next week. We are out of the Backlog Attack game next week. We're gonna start going, current events probably. What are you thinking about tackling for our first week back, DJ?
Well, I'm probably just gonna play more Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight.
Got a ways to go. I looked at the map in this, and it's actually not as sprawling as I was dreading, because I was like, what if this is just 100 areas? But no. I still have some work to do, though.
Good.
I don't know. I'll think of something.
Sure. You always do. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.